This Christmas, the royal family didn't just cancel traditions. They exposed a fracture so deep that even the crown can't hide it anymore. No unity, no reconciliation, and no clear future. What we're witnessing isn't family drama. It's an institution coming apart in real time. The royal Christmas at Sandringham has always been a symbol of tradition, continuity, and family unity. But this year, the cracks have become chasms. Prince William won't even stay for lunch after church service. Prince Andrew has been banned from the private family celebration. And Prince Harry remains estranged in California, with no Christmas phone call planned with his father, King Charles. This isn't the natural evolution of a modern monarchy. This is an institution in crisis, hemorrhaging credibility, unity, and purpose with each passing month. The question isn't whether the royal family will survive. It's what form it will take when the dust settles.
Ah, Princess Anne here, woman of few words, the Christmas family, thinking of my dearest late mamma. To Meghan, you'll never be a duchess. Please could you stop being a Costco Martha Stewart until the ginger one? Don't do impressions of large black women on the television, even if they are somewhat smaller now thanks to Monarchy. And to Charles, our family have hunted the lands for generation. We have shot birds, feathered things, deer, pheasants. Stop with the net zero shit. And that goes for your side bitch also. And to Andrew, if you could stop being a paedophile, that'd be terrific.
Queen Elizabeth II possessed a rare gift, the ability to hold together a dysfunctional family through sheer force of personality, duty, and tradition. She understood that the monarchy's survival depended on presenting a united front, regardless of private tensions. She and Prince Philip created an environment where family members knew their boundaries and understood that the institution came first. Since her death in 2022, that carefully constructed unity has evaporated. The initial coming together during mourning and King Charles's coronation in 2023 proved temporary. What we've witnessed throughout 2024 is not just the loss of a matriarch, but the collapse of the entire system she created. King Charles lacks his mother's authority. He's a more emotional, conflicted leader who struggles to separate his personal desires from institutional necessity. His cancer diagnosis has added urgency to family reconciliation attempts, but also vulnerability that others exploit. Without that strong central leadership, each royal faction has begun protecting their own interests, creating competing power centers within the same institution. The fracturing is now so severe that the family can't even maintain appearances during their most public annual gathering. When you can't present unity at Christmas, when can you?
But actually, when I saw that video, I was like, there is something true. This is a royal family divided on so many levels this Christmas, right to the point that William isn't even wanting to stay for the lunch after the main church service at Sandringham. So let's get into it all, Brittany. But from a macro point of view, it is very sad to see the disintegration of the unity, which I guess Queen Elizabeth II and to a strong extent Prince Philip were always able to endear from their relatives.
I think you're definitely right, Dan. When it comes to this instance, I really think over this last year, yes, I think the family came together in 2022 when she first died, and obviously King Charles's coronation in 2023. But I think since then, we have seen this sort of fracturing occurring as people are sort of moving to sort of protect themselves and sort of manage themselves. And as the institution overall, I think, sort of has lacked the strong leader and direction. I think we've seen definitely a royal family that I would say is more in crisis than I thought they would be at the beginning of, let's say, last year or something like that. So it's just really a big surprise where things have gone, I think. And it's quite sad. It's like you're hoping to see unity, you're hoping to see a strong royal family, but I just don't know if that's necessarily there right now.
The Prince Harry situation represents King Charles's greatest personal failure as monarch. Despite overwhelming evidence that reconciliation is impossible under current circumstances, Charles continues attempting to bridge a divide that Harry and Meghan systematically exploit. Let's be absolutely clear about what's happening. Harry wants back into the royal family fold, but only on his terms. He wants security funding, royal status, the ability to profit from his titles, and zero accountability for the damage he's caused. Meghan wants even less. She has no interest in genuine reconciliation unless it protects her financial interests, specifically the titles for herself and her children. Every time Charles extends an olive branch, Harry and Meghan weaponize it for public relations. Earlier this year, when Charles was diagnosed with cancer and met briefly with Harry, the Sussexes immediately spun the narrative publicly, exploiting a father's illness for positive media coverage. They turned a private family health crisis into content. Charles's team and Queen Camilla have not forgotten this betrayal. They understand what Charles struggles to accept, that Harry's motivations are purely transactional. This isn't a son seeking genuine relationship with his dying father. This is a failed celebrity using family access to maintain relevance and income. The most damaging aspect? Harry recently stated he has no regrets about anything he's done over the past several years. No regrets about the Oprah interview filled with lies. No regrets about the Netflix series that turned his family into entertainment. No regrets about Spare, a book that violated every confidence and relationship he ever had. A man with no regrets has learned nothing, and a man who's learned nothing will absolutely repeat his mistakes. Charles faces an impossible choice: the institution or his son. He cannot have both. Every attempt at reconciliation creates tensions with Prince William, who understands that Harry represents an existential threat to the monarchy's credibility. William sees clearly what his father cannot: that Harry and Meghan view family members as resources to be extracted, not relationships to be honored. Until Harry genuinely apologizes, not a half-hearted PR statement, but a real acknowledgement of wrongdoing, any relationship will be toxic. And nothing in Harry's behavior suggests that apology will ever come.
There has been so much briefing and counter-briefing about what is really going on between King Charles and Prince Harry. But I think as we get to Christmas, Brittany, it is very fair to say that the way that Harry is trying to present things to the world is not accurate. From what I'm told, Brittany, there will be no big reunion on Christmas Day, virtually. I'm talking. There's not going to be a happy phone call. There still remains serious tensions, in part, Brittany, because Charles has not forgotten, and certainly Charles's team and Camilla have not forgotten, how Harry and Meghan used that brief reunion earlier this year to push a PR narrative. What's really going on?
And there's so much here in this particular instance because you have Harry, who definitely, I think, 100% wants back into the British royal family fold. I think you have Meghan, who doesn't want to, Meghan, who I think doesn't want reconciliation unless she can protect her own interests, i.e., the title and maybe perhaps the title of her children. That's really the only thing she cares about in this particular scenario. And, I just feel so sorry for Charles because we don't know, obviously, how serious his cancer is. We got a great announcement about that not too long ago, but these could be the last years of his life, and he wants a relationship with his son. And anytime he tries to kind of bridge this divide, Harry and Meghan sort of destroy it for him and make it almost impossible for him to have a public relationship with Harry unless he basically, and I think again, this goes back to the tensions you were talking about within the family, causes tensions with William, because it's like William, I'm sure, is like, we have to have some firm separation here between what is royal, what is Harry and Meghan. And Charles, in I think an effort to reestablish this relationship, is causing greater tensions in the family because I don't think a lot of people want him to. And it's just, you just had this very, very toxic, very divided circumstance here. And when it comes to Harry and Meghan, they will utilize any opportunity with the royals to exploit it for their own benefits. No matter if it damages Charles, William, Catherine, whoever, they'll do it. And so I think Charles should be much more aware of that, hopefully, than he was when he first tried, but he's just not going to get what he wants out of his relationship with Harry and Meghan at this point.
Perhaps the most significant development this Christmas is the emergence of Prince William as a separate power center, operating increasingly independently of his father's wishes. William isn't waiting for his inheritance. He's already building his monarchy. The decision not to stay for Christmas lunch at Sandringham isn't just about family comfort. It's a public signal that William operates by his own rules now. He's made clear through carefully orchestrated briefings that when he becomes king, many traditions sacred to Queen Elizabeth II and Charles will be eliminated. The elaborate gift-giving by royal ranking, the strict table placement protocols, the rigid formality, all relics of a past William considers irrelevant. William told Eugene Levy earlier this year that he's not that interested in history. For a future king, this is an extraordinary statement. History and tradition form the entire justification for monarchy's existence. If you're not preserving something valuable from the past, why should you exist at all? What we're witnessing is William preparing a radical modernization that may actually destroy what makes the monarchy meaningful. Yes, some traditions seem silly or outdated, but they're also what differentiates royalty from celebrity. The strict order of succession, the formal protocols, the connection to centuries of history, these aren't bugs in the system. They're features. There's a real danger that William will overcorrect so dramatically that he transforms the monarchy into something unrecognizable and ultimately unnecessary. If you strip away tradition, formality, and historical continuity, you're left with just wealthy people in nice houses, not a national institution worth preserving. William's shadow court represents both the monarchy's future and its potential destruction. He's positioning himself to sweep away not just outdated traditions, but potentially the foundations that give the institution meaning.
Right to actually put his foot down for once and just say, actually, things are better than they looked. Certainly earlier this year, when Harry was talking about, the next year is going to be all about my dad, it was on this tacit understanding, Brittany, that this could be Charles's last Christmas. Now, I have reported the cancer remains incurable. He is certainly not in remission. There will be continued treatment into 2026. But at the same time, Brittany, his prognosis is slightly better than probably what Harry was expecting. So as a result, it's almost quite crude of the delusional Duke. But again, he's using that to almost get more and to bargain with Charles and the British royal family more. Certainly, I think that is behind the extra push for security, for example.
Harry claims that he wants to come back to the UK for, you could say, the benefit of his family. But the reality is, and what Charles needs to make really, really clear to Harry, is that the future with the royal family as a working royal, as even a peripheral member, is just non-existent. Harry needs to have private jobs. Harry is still constantly trying to relive basically his royal role by doing these cosplay royal duties. That's the only way you can really explain it. And if Charles lets this go on too long, he does risk Harry basically bringing the entire institution down. So Charles really has to figure out here what is the most important, which is the institution or his relationship with his son. Now, I understand how important the relationship with his son is, and I'm sure Harry is using a lot of these opportunities to try to wiggle his way back in. But how is he going to do that? Because Charles, I think, needs to know and understand that if Harry is only doing this all in the contingent that he gets to keep his title, keeps getting to do his cosplay royal routine, that only damages the institution and shows that his relationship with his father is not based at this point on actually having a personal interactions with his father. It's all about protecting himself and his own business interests and his own bank account. And I think that is something that Charles and the rest of the royals need to seriously consider. What are Harry's motivations here? Because I don't think they're good for him or the institution overall.
One of the most troubling aspects of William's emerging vision is his apparent lack of genuine Christian faith. This isn't a minor issue. As future Supreme Governor of the Church of England, the monarch's spiritual authenticity matters profoundly. William reportedly doesn't attend church regularly outside of official obligations. If faith isn't something he values personally, how can he credibly lead the national church? This isn't about judgment, it's about authenticity and legitimacy. You cannot effectively lead a spiritual institution you don't believe in. If William's team is positioning him as a secular monarch who views church leadership as just another ceremonial duty, he needs to seriously reconsider. Being head of the Church of England carries spiritual weight and accountability. It requires genuine faith, not performance. The congregation deserves a leader who shares their beliefs, not someone going through motions for public relations. This speaks to a larger hollowing out of the monarchy's purpose. If the royal family doesn't believe in the traditions, faith, and duties they're supposed to embody, why should anyone else? You're not modernizing at that point, you're dismantling.
Isn't it shocking, Brittany, when you look at this from a macro level, though? There were chances for 2 reunions this year. There were opportunities. If Harry and Meghan had actually shown some form of contrition, admitted that they were in the wrong, Brittany, there was an opportunity for the relationship with Charles to at least get back on some type of positive grounding. Likewise, Thomas Markle. But they can't do it. They have a fundamental inability, Brittany, to ever admit they are wrong about anything.
They do, and it's so damaging to themselves. I mean, Harry in The Guardian says he basically has no regrets for what he's done over the last several years. And because he has no regrets, the man hasn't learned anything. And so part of the problem, I think, with Charles attempting to reestablish a relationship with Harry is that Harry has done wrong by his family. He's written a book, he's done a Netflix series, he said horrible things about them publicly many times for international consumption and turn their lives into punchlines. And there needs to be consequences for that. And in some ways, the world is enacting some of that. But Charles needs to not establish a relationship with Harry fully until Harry, I think, apologizes to him. If he doesn't do that, Harry is going to walk all over Charles. And I think that's already what Harry is attempting to do. Harry and Meghan have see no value in their other family members except for how it can enrich themselves. And so if you allow Harry in without him acknowledging fault, he'll just make the same mistakes again. He'll drag you through the mud again. And Charles, I mean, he just will have to just deal with the reality that his son is sort of gone at this point.
Prince Andrew's exile from Christmas celebrations represents another catastrophic failure of royal crisis management. This problem should have been definitively resolved years ago, but Queen Elizabeth's refusal to act decisively and Charles's subsequent delays have created an impossible situation. Andrew has been banned from the private family Christmas at Sandringham, forced to spend what will be his last holiday at Royal Lodge with Sarah Ferguson before losing that residence entirely. His daughters, Beatrice and Eugenie, face the impossible choice between supporting their parents and maintaining their own royal standing. From a humanitarian perspective, it's harsh to exclude a family member from a private religious service and family gathering. But from a PR standpoint, the royal family's years of inaction made this inevitable. Andrew's reputation is so damaged that his presence contaminates any event, even private ones. This situation illustrates a persistent royal failing, the ostrich approach to crisis management. Instead of addressing problems decisively when they emerge, the institution hopes they'll disappear if ignored long enough. They never do. They metastasize until you're forced into brutal solutions that hurt everyone involved. Andrew deserved better crisis management years ago, either full rehabilitation if possible, or complete separation. His daughters deserved clarity about their father's status. The institution deserved decisive leadership. Instead, everyone got years of uncertainty culminating in a humiliating exile that satisfies no one.
And Brittany, we remember that is what William has always advocated for. What does seem very clear this Christmas, Brittany, is increasingly the Prince of Wales is operating a separate court. He has so much more power. He's doing things his way. the modernization effort has almost begun with or without Charles's approval. That certainly to me seems behind this decision not to be at the Christmas lunch, given William has briefed, or his friends have briefed and made clear that come him taking over the throne, lots of these royal traditions that were very important to Queen Elizabeth II, and Charles has tried to continue them to honor his mother's memory, will be out the window. And they are in some ways, Brittany, quite old-fashioned, I guess, and they very much focus on that idea of what your titles allow you to get, where you stand in the royal pecking order. For example, the presents are given out in order of royal ranking. The table settings, you find your place based on what time you arrive, and of course, the more senior members of the royal family are closer to where that dinner is held, so they get to their seats first, for example. And for William, those things are just relics of the past, and he doesn't necessarily have that same sentimentality about change.
King Charles's ongoing cancer battle adds urgency and poignancy to every family conflict. While his prognosis has improved somewhat, the cancer is incurable but not immediately terminal. With treatment continuing into 2026, the reality of his mortality hangs over every decision. This should be time for reconciliation and peace. Instead, it's become another point of exploitation. Harry's comments about 2025 being all about my dad weren't expressions of concern. They were tactical positioning. He's using his father's illness as leverage for security funding and royal access. Charles understandably wants relationship with his son during whatever time remains, but his emotional needs are clouding his judgment about institutional protection. The reality is stark. Harry is either unable or unwilling to provide the genuine, unconditional relationship Charles craves. Every interaction is transactional. Every gesture is calculated for public benefit. William sees this clearly, which creates additional tensions. While Charles pursues feudal reconciliation, William understands that Harry represents ongoing danger to the institution's credibility. This fundamental disagreement between king and heir further weakens unified royal leadership.
To consider, Dan, what the future reign looks like for William, because he said in his interview with Eugene Levy earlier this year that he's not that interested in history. And in some ways, it doesn't seem like he's that interested in tradition, because history and tradition often sort of go hand in hand. And I think there's definitely a way to modernize things while utilizing sort of the old, let's say, kind of framework that they used to have. But I almost worry, and I get the sense that I think William is almost going to do an overcorrection. He's going to overreact and overcorrect to such an extent that he's really going to whittle down what the monarchy is. And yes, some of the aspects of it are a little silly. Some of it is a little stringent and, binding in a way, succession and these sorts of things. But that's what makes the monarchy the monarchy. You cannot take away the order of the line of succession without ultimately disrupting the entire system in the first place. And I think the challenge for William, and one of the things I think I remain somewhat concerned about, is it's unclear exactly where he'll fall on that line. And again, I feel like we could definitely see a really large overcorrection from William, which is why he's sort of trying to already figure out maybe in some ways how that works behind the scenes, setting up in some ways a shadow royal court, which as the heir in the future to the throne makes more sense for him to do as he figures out within his framework what things look like.
Perhaps most tellingly, William wants his children, including the future king, to experience Christmas with the Middleton family rather than the traditional royal celebration at Sandringham. This speaks volumes about what William values and what he's building. The Middletons represent modern, warm, relatively normal family life. Their Christmases are about genuine connection, not rigid protocol. William wants his children to understand that style of family intimacy rather than the formal royal traditions that defined his own childhood. This is significant because one of those children will someday be monarch. William is deliberately choosing to form their understanding of family, duty, and celebration through the Middleton lens, not the Windsor one. He's building a monarchy that looks more like upper middle-class British life and less like centuries of royal tradition. Meanwhile, Harry and Meghan's children have never experienced an English Christmas at all. Two heirs to the throne, growing up with completely different understandings of what royal life means, or if it means anything at all.
I mean, it's a very serious question. From a spiritual perspective, I consider it quite serious. If you're going to be head of the Church of England, if you don't really go to church every Sunday, if it's not something that you value in your life, you shouldn't be head of the Church of England. It should be that simple. And I could see it definitely William going down that route. And if his PR team, like if this is a decision he's decided to make, if this is not something he's interested in, I think William needs to take stock of himself and consider, okay, am I just doing this to appease people, or is this really like what I feel like spiritually? Because this is very important things. You're talking about, being a head of a church, leading the congregation. You're held, I think, to a higher standard when you do that. And if that's not something that you feel led to do, I mean, in the Christian faith, you are held to account for at the end of your days, and I don't think that will go over particularly well with the man upstairs. So, I think that's a huge decision William has to make here in the future. A really, really big one, and I think an important one too.
This Christmas represents more than family drama. It's the visible manifestation of institutional transformation and possible collapse. Queen Elizabeth's monarchy, built on duty, tradition, and unified public presentation, is gone. What replaces it remains uncertain. King Charles lacks the strength to hold competing factions together. Prince William is building his own vision that may dismantle what makes monarchy meaningful. Prince Harry actively undermines the institution while demanding its benefits. Prince Andrew's disaster illustrates years of failed crisis management. The royal family is experiencing what happens when you lose strong leadership, abandon unifying principles, and allow personal interests to override institutional necessity. It's a case study in organizational collapse happening in real time, in public view. Whether the monarchy survives this transition depends entirely on whether William's modernization strengthens or destroys the institution's fundamental purpose. Right now, it's genuinely unclear which path he's choosing. What is clear is that the monarchy of 2030 will look radically different from anything Queen Elizabeth would recognize. For good or ill, the royal guard is changing, and there's no going back.